right, let's testify tonight.
Oh God, you've done so much for me. I'm grateful and overwhelmed here at your feet. And I could stay here forever, Lord, but you call me to something more. And I hear you say that you have a plan to use every broken woman and man to display just how good you are. We are your living pieces of art. What good does it do to hide away when all of my scars are a picture of grace? All right. So I will testify of the power of God. Tell the word of the hope I have found. For my body was broken, my heart was made whole, and that's too good to keep to myself. So I will testify of the power of God. Oh, do you believe it? Has He done it for anyone else? I said, has He done it for anyone else? 'Cause the God that I serve, He's always at work. Has He done it for anyone else? So come on and testify of the power of God. Come on and tell the world of the hope we have found. For our body was broken, our hearts were made whole, and that's too good to keep to yourself. Come on and testify of the power of God. This is my story, this is my song, praising my Savior all the day long. I'm gonna testify. Somebody testify your voice. This is my. So I'm gonna testify. Somebody testify. Come on, take it up. Jesus, my champion, the victor of grace, the only one worthy of all of my praise. Yeah. So come on and testify. Oh, somebody lift Him high. Come on, testify of the power of God. I will tell the world of the hope I have found. Oh, for my body was broken, my heart was made whole, and that's too good to keep to myself. So I will testify of the power of God. Sing it. Oh, my body was broken, my heart was made whole, and that's too good to keep to myself. So I will testify of the power of God. Oh, let's do that right now, Murfreesboro.
And good morning, everybody. Hope you're doing well. Yes, I'm still feeling kind of sick. Yes, to pray. Yes, I'm still feeling kind of sick. And the good news is I feel like I'm over the hump, that I feel a little less sick today than I did yesterday. Although my energy level is about 0. Sorry. And but and of course, with all the situation with my daughter from last week, those of you that were praying for her, thank you so much. She is back home, and it's gonna be a while, but hopefully she'll be better soon. And it's just been a rough week, and so yeah, um, it's just there's some times where you just feel that pressure on you. You feel how life has just gotten the better of you, but then you also realize that there's something bigger, that there's someone who's ultimately in control. And so, and that someone obviously is God. I couldn't go to church because I'm sick, but our church live stream so we can still participate. My daughter needed to go to the hospital, but there's insurance in place to allow her to go. Um, you know, I've been feeling, under the weather, but I've been able to pull myself through this week with God's grace. So it's times that when things are going wrong, that we can either choose to fall into self pity and desperation, or we can be thankful for what we do have and thankful for the fact that there is a God that does indeed care about every little detail. And God does not say, oops. And so I don't have a prepared topic today, mainly because, as you guys know, I've been feeling under the weather. And just last night, as early as I could, I just went to bed. And even though I'm late with this show, this was as early as I could possibly do it. So I'm just working the best I can. Because even after this, you know, I gotta drive some Uber for at least 8, 9, 10 hours today because gotta pay them bills. Unfortunately, the bill collectors don't care if you're not feeling well. Um, all right. God's grace and over-the-counter medication. Oh man, let me tell you, um, I've definitely been a major investor in OTCs this week. Um, Not to mention my own little concoction that I like to whip up. So yes, indeed, you are 100% correct, Stan. Trustin says, "Good morning. How you doing, Trustin? Hope you are well." And for those of you that are wondering, no, I did not miss that other comment earlier. I'm just going to ignore trolls. If someone wants to bring something for real to the conversation, that's fine. If you're just here to troll, I don't care. I'm not interested. Youngster says, "Good morning. How you doing, Youngster? Hope you are well." So we'll see if you guys have anything you want to talk about here. The board or the slate or whatever is open, taking questions, comments, concerns, criticisms, uh, whatever you have. So we'll see if you guys have anything to say. Other than that, I got nothing. So, um, and let me clarify something, Darren. If anybody else had said what you just said, I would probably just take it as a harmless joke. So, yes, I am prejudiced against you. And the reason that I am prejudiced against you is because of your continuous habit of coming on here and without provocation simply attacking me or and trolling this channel, not to mention some of the backstab we've done over the last couple of years. So no, I'm not going to give you the benefit of the doubt. You are welcome to come here and add a comment, but if you want to throw jokes at my expense, I'm not going to read them. So sorry. You have burnt that bridge, my friend. Saw your short out on the big beautiful bill. Yeah, I gotta say, the big beautiful bill. What a whole and by the way, for those of you that don't know, I'm not talking about some hyperbole that Trump has said in some speech saying it's a big beautiful bill. It actually, on like page 2 of the bill, refers to itself as the official title of the bill is the big beautiful bill, because I guess Trump called it that, and somebody said let's make that the official name, and now it is, which is typical of what we've been seeing. But it is big, but it's definitely not beautiful. And it's kind of funny because they keep talking about how they want to balance the budget, and yet, they have all these tax cuts in here. And don't get me wrong, so I'm not saying it's just tax cuts for the rich. Rich, yes, the rich will benefit the most, but it is tax cuts for the most part across the board. But the it's asking, it's a bigger budget than we've ever had. If you want to balance the budget, here's a news flash: you got to spend less money, and and you probably shouldn't be cutting back on revenue. Your voice sounds raspy. A bottle of tequila warmed up with Coca-Cola will help that. Yeah, it probably would, but then I would be in no condition to drive. What do you think God stands on the idea of eating ice cream for breakfast? I think God is all for eating for breakfast anything that is, uh, not horrible to eat. Like, so as long as you're not having a a goat that's boiled in its mother's blood or something, I think you're fine. What backstabbing you refer, Darren? I'm not going to let you distract the conversation. You know full well, and I'm not getting into it with you here. If you want to apologize for it in private or whatever, that's fine. But I'm not going to sit here and explain to you what you have done, because you know full well what you have done. And I'm not interested in turning this show into the Darren versus Michael show. Just wondering if the SNAP stuff is actually reducing total benefits, or it's just restricting what the credits can be used to purchase, like not buying soda and potato chips. Well, I will tell you. So my son Joshua gets SNAP, and because he, being fully disabled and also never having worked, gets not the same Social Security that I do, but the one just based on disability, which also is based. You have to be making like around the poverty level and to qualify and all that. And they have significantly reduced his benefits. So yeah, it is the actual amount. And no, they haven't sent anything about telling him that he can no longer get potato chips and soda with it, as far as I know. The rules as far as what you can and cannot buy with it are the same. Now, I'm not a big fan of the SNAP program, the way it's set up, but I mean, I would just say this: make Social Security disability benefits be a living wage, and then things like SNAP would no longer be necessary. 1,000 pages, yes, 1,118. Sounds childish. The bill is the. I'm sorry. The bill reads like it was written by a bunch of angry 12-year-olds. Uh, that's a good opening message. Kind of need to hear that today. Thanks. No problem, Tristan. Spike says, if it wasn't for SNAP, I would have starved to death when I was a kid. You're not the only one, you know. I'll tell you, when I was a kid, I remember, and I didn't understand it at the time, but my grandmother literally had government cheese in her refrigerator. That was a program under Reagan. Um, and I didn't know I mean, I'd heard jokes about government cheese, but you know, and the funny thing is, and this is the thing that makes me angry about some of these welfare programs is how insulting they are to the people that receive them. So, for example, and I remember looking at this because I made a joke about it 100 times since then. If you looked at a block of government cheese, it wasn't cheese. If you actually looked at the label, it was, and I'm not making this up, it said pasteurized, processed, cheese flavored food product. That's what the government was giving our old people back in the 80s. And now, of course, under the Trump administration, they just say, yeah, screw them. Yuck says, glad Trump, not a pastor, had been called Big Beautiful Church. Yeah, that would have been funny, actually. Jesus probably never encountered ice cream. No, but he could have turned milk into ice cream had he chose to. The Gorilla's in the house, says Kapla. How you doing, Gorilla? Darren going on about the backstabbing thing. We're done talking about that. Sorry. More interested in the revelations regarding the Biden dementia cover-up. I don't know any news on that. I haven't seen anything recently on that. But honestly, aside from reading the big beautiful bill, I haven't paid too much attention to anything political this week. SSI is actually below the poverty level. I think it should just they should make it that we just SSI the actual number of poverty level in 2025 and 1976. I'm not sure exactly what you mean there, Youngster. Sometimes you guys got to stop and breathe. Read your comment before you hit the post button because sometimes I don't get what you're trying to say. But you're so I always get SSI and SSDI confused. I can never remember whichever the one is that is income that is means tested, like my son has. I think you're right. I think it's like right around the poverty level or a little below, and and again I think that's insulting. I think that it is sick that we call ourselves the richest country um, in the nation, and yet we sit here and we're giving. Let me see. Let's see. Now I know that these numbers aren't going to be 100% accurate because I'm just asking Google. But let's say in the big. Let's see. All right, so here the tax cuts in the big beautiful bill. Standard deduction goes from 1,000 to 2,000. I'm sorry. Well, yeah, it says not 1,000. It's a $1,000 increase in the standard deduction for individuals and a $2,000 increase for joint filers. The estate tax exemption, because normally, keep in mind, people talk about the death tax, but the death tax doesn't actually kick in unless you are inheriting multiple millions of dollars. If you have a family member that leaves you 100, 200, 300, even $1 million from in their will, you do not get taxed on that. It's not until I think currently it's somewhere 3 or 4 million that I could look it up, but it's not really important right now, that you get taxed on it. But they're changing that so that the estate tax exemption will increase to 15 million and be adjusted for inflation. Yeah, and you see, this is what kind of ticks the liberals off, and I totally understand that. And I don't like the tax structure at all the way it is. But if you think about that, that's basically when Bernie Sanders sits there and says tax breaks for the rich. I'm sorry, but who needs a $15 million tax break or tax exemption? If you are inheriting more than $3, $4, $5 million, and you're complaining because you're getting taxed on the other, $10 million that you're inheriting, I'm sorry, F you, buddy. Whatever. The corporate tax is lowered from 35% to 21%. Let's see, state and local tax deduction limit goes from $10,000 to $40,000. So that's where I believe, if I remember correctly, it's where you take your state taxes and you write it off against your federal taxes. So the more your state taxes you, the more you can write that off. So if you're in California and California taxes you $40,000 of your income, then you use that to write off against your federal taxes. And for let's see, increased deduction limit from $10,000 to $40,000 for married couples with incomes up to $500,000. Let's see, and the 199A deduction permanently extends and expands the deduction for pass-through business income from 20 to 23%. And then there's, of course, the no taxes. Now, I will say this. On the tips I saw, I didn't see anything on overtime. But I haven't, it's an 1,100-page bill, so maybe it's in there. And car loan interest. Why does car loan interest need to be tax deductible? That makes no sense. I think it's because Trump killed the auto industry and he's trying to help it a little bit. Additional tax relief for seniors, increased child tax credit, expanded health savings accounts, and new savings accounts. Let's see. The bill also, okay, that's other stuff. All right, so now it's saying that's $3.8 trillion in tax cuts with all that stuff. Now, and I'm assuming that $3.8 trillion is probably amortized over some time. Let's see. But if we say, okay, so 3.8 by, all right. So 3.8 trillion divided by the entire populace of the United States is $11,515.15 per person. Let that sink in for a second. So we are literally giving away out of our budget $11,515 per person in this country just to reduce taxes a bit. And yet we can't give people a living wage on Social Security. That's a load of crap. You could, because keep in mind, maximum Social Security benefits, maximum, is about $25,000 a year. If you took that 11,000, and keep in mind, obviously the number of Social Security beneficiaries is nowhere near the population of the country. So let's see. Let's take, how many, receive Social Security. All right, so there's about 73 million people that actually receive uh, um, Social Security in total. So even though this would be an unfair number, let's just go with 73 million. So if we go by 73 million, you could, and I'm not making this up, you could increase every single person receiving Social Security right now, you could give them a $52,000 raise for the same cost as those tax cuts. Now, granted, do I think that Social Security recipients should be making $75,000 a year? No, not necessarily. I'm just saying that the idea that we can't afford Social Security is stupid. The problem is that we are pissing money away in other areas and we don't care. Let's see. Stanley says, my grandmother used powdered milk. Yeah, my grandmother had powdered milk as well. So American cheese. Yeah, I don't even think it qualifies as that. I remember that. I remember that cheese. We appreciated the heck out of it. Well, yeah, that's the funny thing. When you're the recipient of it, you're kind of grateful, but at the same time, when you look back on it, you realize how kind of demeaning that really was. Darren says government butter was the best butter you ever had. You know, I know my grandma had government butter, but I don't remember how it tasted compared to regular butter. Youngster thinks government cheese tastes better than the cheese you got in the store. When you went to the wrong store, buddy. I guess they probably didn't have any form of refrigeration in the Holy Land. Imagine never having a cold drink. Yeah, that would be bizarre thing. I mean, because we live in such an incredible. I mean, like it's kind of funny. I have right here a piping hot drink, and over here orange juice on ice, and neither of those two things would be easily convenient 2,000 years ago. Yeah, I'm not talking about that. And look, if you want to ask where in the Bible does it say it's okay to, I'm not throwing an accusation out there. I'm just saying if you want to talk about it privately, you can send me a DM apologizing about it, and you already know what it's all about. I'm not trying to drag your dirty laundry out here in the open. You're the one that keeps wanting to bring it up. I'm not interested in turning the show into the Darren show. So I'm trying to be more biblically based than you are. You just want to make everything about you. Martin says, "How are you? Been away for months, and you're still fighting with Darren." Well, it's kind of funny. I haven't seen Darren in a while. He just showed up today and decided that it's that whole thing. Spike is saying bait. Yeah. Anyway, and there goes Darren back to his normal mode. They should and you know what, Darren? I talk about whatever topics you guys want to talk about. If you have a theological question you want to discuss, then bring it up. But if you just want to bitch about what other people have brought up, I'm sorry, not sorry. They should raise the SSI money level to. Well, yeah, I mean, I think that it should be based on. Honestly, it should be based on realistic inflation numbers, not these BS numbers that the government uses. Because to give you guys an idea, this for 2025, we got a 3% raise. And I will tell you, 3% doesn't even cover the cost of eggs, literally. And Stanley, yes, that is exactly right. If you have a religious topic, bring it on up. Believe me, and I've said this a million times, I'd rather talk about theology than any other topic on this show. But I talk about whatever you guys bring up. Does your church do any sort of food distribution? Yes, in fact. We have a ministry that we call the 5,000, named after the miraculous event where Jesus fed 5,000 people, where, and I don't remember exactly where it is, but it's somewhere here in Murfreesboro. They have a group of people that every Sunday morning they go to this one place. It's like in a city park somewhere. And rain or shine, doesn't matter. And they serve a full breakfast for anybody that wants to come out and get it. My wife actually cooks for a ministry called Stepping Stones. Stepping Stones is a ministry that helps out homeless women and children. And so it provides them a place to sleep, internet access so that they can search for jobs and housing, as well as a hot meal. And so my wife cooks for them like twice a month. And we also, I mean, I don't think you would call it a food ministry, but we have our hot dog ministry, which I think is really fun, where we basically have a hot dog cart that we set up out by the bars on Friday nights so that people that are staggering out of the bars will stop and get a free hot dog. And we also give out pop to anybody who wants it. And we just try to strike up conversation about anything. It's not necessarily religion. But whatever people want to talk about. Although the funny thing is that, and Corey says this all the time, it's like, hey, you know, our mission is not to bring up Jesus. But if you're talking to a drunk person long enough, the topic's going to come up. And that's kind of true. Because they'll say, hey, where are you from? And, oh, we're from a local church, and we just do. Well, how you do? What's the catch? Oh, no catch. We, you know, and it actually can become a very interesting conversation. But the real stated purpose of the hot dog ministry isn't to recruit people to go to church. It's to sober people up before they get in their cars, to show genuine love and concern for our community. In addition to all that, our church also gives away hundreds of thousands of dollars to local charities that service the public. So yes, our church does a lot to try and fight hunger here in Middle Tennessee. A lot of churches do food drives, and I don't have a problem with that. Let's see. When you were young, did you ever think of being a mime as your side job? Nope, never did. Darren says, sure, but churches are 501c3 tax exempt. Not sure what that's a response to. However, I will say this. Yes, most churches are 501c3s, but that people confuse the 501c3 tax exemption with the idea that pastors don't pay taxes or something. And I'll just say this. All it means is that churches are exempt from business income tax, just like any 501c3. However, anybody working at the church pays the same taxes as you or me. Let's see. Josiah says, I got a rat dog. I certainly do. She's sleeping right here. Let's see. Going back and forth about something. Let's see. That me and Darren are like the odd couple or stepbrothers. One day they'll make amends and be besties. I've tried. I try to understand how to use Blender. Blender is a steep learning curve. Not gonna lie, it takes on the one hand, if you have a flair for it, I would say Blender is a great 3D application. There's really Nothing you can't do in Blender that you can do with many of these so-called pro apps like Maya, 3ds Max, or Lightwave, or any of those. Blender is, especially now, a full-fledged 3D application that you could do absolutely professional level modeling, rendering, and animation in. But because of that, it means that to really be good at it, you have to put hundreds of hours into practice and study in order to understand what it is you want. Let's see. Your PC was too slow to render anything. Yeah, that is another thing. Is Blender, like all those types of apps, you do need to have a solid machine to do it in. Darren says things were better before Social Security. Yeah, we just let people die. That was better. I understand people want to say everything was better before certain things. However, in all honesty, and I'm not trying to mock Darren here, in all honesty, I think that things were not better because we didn't have Social Security. Things were better because society was at a level and societal attitudes were at a place where Social Security was not entirely necessary. So if you think about it, if you were in a small town, like, think of like Little House on the Prairie, right? So you're in the 19th, 18th century here in the United States, and somebody becomes injured to where they can no longer work, right? There's no Social Security, there's no welfare, there's no 401ks or pension plans. So here's what happens with that family. Assuming that that family is members of the local congregation, which most towns at that point in history were built around the church. The church was the centerpiece of the town. And so, assuming that the family were members, then that means that the church congregation would very quickly find out what happened. And the church's obligation, as stated in Scripture, would be to provide for that family. And the church would step up and do so. Men from the church would perform whatever maintenance was needed on their ranch, and basically, like, because most people had ranches back then, so their livestock would be tended by people in their spare time, sold just like anybody else's, and that's how they would make their money. Or if they couldn't do that much, that, like, let's say the dad died or whatever, that's why, the Bible makes so many references to taking care of widows and orphans. Now, fast forward to 20th century society, we become a bit more secular. And don't get me wrong, the nation was always founded on the idea of separation of religious and political principles. I don't think we were ever meant to be a theocracy, and certainly don't want to be a theocracy. But as we strayed further and further away, where we started to embrace the secular more than the spiritual, not as a matter of law, but as a matter of a collective of individuals on a societal level. Well, then that built-in safety net of the church was weakened. And it was weakened to the point where it could no longer sustain taking care of every person that might become injured or sick or whatever. And then eventually we got Social Security as a stopgap. And so, sure, things were better before Social Security, but Social Security wasn't the cause of things getting worse. It was a symptom of things getting worse because the church could no longer support the indigent. Yeah, so Social Security is way below with poverty. If it's matched by today's standards, people will get over $300 more a month. It's time for an update. Hashtag raise SSI. Well, like you said, I think $300 is not enough. Um, I mean, you think about it, like I'll tell you, just putting a real world scenario in it. I'm getting the maximum benefit from Social Security, and I'm getting less than half of what I was earning when I was on the job. And the problem is, if I was at quote unquote retirement age, which I believe is currently like 67, realistically, your house should be paid for. If you own a home, you shouldn't have any really outstanding debts. And so if your income gets cut in half because of you're retired, most people can handle that. However, if suddenly out of the blue your work career is just cut off because of illness or injury, then your mortgage company is not going to suddenly say, oh, yeah, you can just pay us half the amount you were paying before. No problem. Right? So, unfortunately, Rocket Mortgage still demands that they get the full monthly mortgage payment that we were paying on my larger income, even though I'm only on Social Security now. You know, all my bills are the same as they were when I was making twice the income. I'm just not making twice the income. And in addition to that, you have the added expenditure, depending on the type of illness or injury, of medical expenses, testing and procedures over and over and over ad nauseum. And that drains the old savings away to where we seriously considered selling this house and trying to find a cheaper place to live. But we love this house, and we decided to try to fight to keep it. And yeah, it's a month to month nightmare for us. But that's why I do the Uber thing and all that. But yeah, Social Security is kind of a joke. Made some short things using models and animations from sites from pre-done stuff. Well, if you and the thing is, I would say this: if you want to focus your talents on animation, just do that. If you want to make your own 3D models, which is more what I like doing, is the modeling aspect, then I would say focus all your time that you have on learning that. And if you want to be a jack of all trades, I would do it in order. I would learn how to model the character before you learn how to animate the same character. But I'd say just focus on whatever it is you want to specialize in. Well, this is the place for miracles. Made Spider-Man crouched on a street sign on a road. That's cool. Um, and I make pro faith and culture videos in TikTok. Oh, TikTok. Ugh. I don't go there. Show off with your hot and cold drinks available at will. Yeah, I know. That's crazy. And yet we complain because things are so uncomfortable for us. I got Siri when Jesus or I got Siri when Jesus told Peter to eat. It's okay to eat pork. Did Jesus eat pork before or tried it before he was ever crucified? If you're asking if Jesus ever ate pork, I don't think it's ever documented that he did. Trek reviewer says, hi, how you doing? I guess Darren is leaving because I guess he couldn't get enough of a rise out of me. Stan says, by the way, have you ever seen The Mist? Has an interesting sort of character study of a very religious woman during an apocalyptic time of event. I would not call that an interesting character study of a religious woman. I would call it a stereotypical depiction of a religious nutcase. I don't like the way most religious people are treated in cinema. But yes, I have seen The Mist. I don't care for that movie. It's a little too dark and nihilistic, especially at the end for me. sort of a B movie. It was interesting how the religious person was portrayed. I, again, wouldn't say it was interesting. I thought it was borderline offensive. She goes from questioning people's faith and criticizing their behavior to gathering disciples, then to handing out judgment. Yes, I remember. Yash says, if your hot dog ministry, if somebody was sober and wanted a hot dog, would you give it to them? Yes. No strings. Anybody wants a hot dog. In fact, I will tell you that when I participated in the ministry years ago, one of our regulars every single night would come out. Was just a kid that worked at one of the bars. He was like a dishwasher, and he would just come out and get free lunch. He'd come out, eat 2 or 3 hot dogs, hang out with us for a little bit, grab a pop, go back in. Has I assume that hammer is supposed to be for Bert O'Prey. Has Bert O'Prey passed away? Just seen a memorial stream. Yes, last year. Captain Foley in the house. Good to see you, sir. Hope you are well. Sorry, I hope you still see this because it was 11 minutes ago that you posted that comment. But always good to see my favorite starship brother from another mother. I don't know. And at the time, most people in the small towns shared the same religion. Yes. Well, because if you were of a different faith than the predominant faith of the town, you would just move to another town. Then I went to soup kitchens and the YMCA's. Yeah, well, and that's the thing. Like a lot of people don't realize that YMCA and YWCA, for that matter, was for young men and young women, respectively, Christian association. Christian being the key term there, meaning that they provided services to the community that the church was supposed to provide. Just like how the Salvation Army was an attempt to, and still is, but is an attempt to be what the church is supposed to be in providing for the impoverished. But unfortunately, and this is a big problem with Christianity in general, is that people don't, I'm talking about, when I say people, I mean the members of the church, do not tithe. And I mean, I joke about tithing as far as when people super chat and stuff here, but if you are a member of a church, then you really should tithe. And the reason for that is that if everybody tithed, then the church would have enough money, even with society as it is today, to make it so that the fact that Social Security doesn't pay enough wouldn't be an issue. The church would again be able to do what the church is supposed to do. But we've got, and like I said, what drove it to the point where we needed things like Social Security and stuff is because people no longer follow biblical principles. And so tithing is just not popular because I'd rather have that money for myself. And then Captain Foley throwing the old live long and prosper up there. Let's see. Let's see. You've been away. Yeah. Captain Foley says, R.I.P. Bird of Prey 5. Yes, indeed. I'll tell you, again, I've said it before, but I really have mixed thoughts on the whole memorial live stream thing that LD's doing on his channel, because I don't need the gut punch of being reminded about Bird every day by seeing my feed. In the 18th century, even atheists often belonged to churches because it's the only real safety net offering support if you got sick, injured, or fell on hard times. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I tried Blender to animate my little screenplay ideas. And then Captain Foley switches over to being Trek Yards. Dun, dun, dun. Says, I think I'll use this account instead. What do you think of Christ Church? I'd have to look it up. I don't know their doctrines. I've had people trying to troll me on TikTok, on one of my TikTok videos. Some people on TikTok will try and turn you into a LOL cow. I don't even know what an LOL cow is. Ugh. And then the good captain says, don't worry, I'm still here. Good to see. Yeah, they still have Christian and salvation right in the names. They do. And they're trying, but they don't have enough. What do I think of the Seventh-day Adventist? The Seventh-day Adventist Church, I don't know all their doctrines, but some of their stuff is definitely questionable. Their dietary restrictions are unreasonable, in my opinion. And the fact that they say you must practice church on Saturday or you are not really going to church kind of thing is also problematic. And my thing is that if you feel convicted to go to church on Saturday because Saturday is the true Sabbath, which, newsflash, Saturday is the true Sabbath. So if you feel convicted to go to church on Saturday because Saturday is the Sabbath, I have no problem with that whatsoever. If you try to tell people they must do that, then you are definitely violating what the Bible says. Stan says, we should go through all 40,000 denominations. Well, I got the list right there. And today is Mother's Day in whatever flag that is. Well, happy Mother's Day in the whatever flag that is. Is that shirt from this year's recent worship night? No, this is an older one. Spike says, had to unfollow all the Bird stuff after I saw Bird and myself playing Call of Duty today. They're playing in some guy's live stream. Yeah. See, that can be tough. And look, Bird and I used to have so much fun poking each other. And so, if I hear him, I had it pop up in my feed. I clicked on it, and it just happened to be on this whole thing where Bird was going on a tirade about how Karoga was going to completely nuke Kurdistan. And I wanted really badly right then and there to make a response video to it about how Kurdistanis will rise and Karoga will fall and that kind of thing. And then I had to stop myself because I realized, you know what? Who am I responding to? A low cow is someone who gets milk for laugh on the internet. What, is that like the stupid videos where you see someone put milk in their mouth and then watch stupid videos and try not to laugh thing and they always fail because they think something that's dumb is funny? Mark says, lots of religious debate on TikTok, usually between Christians and Muslims. Yeah, but is it debate or is it just put downs or gotchas? Because, it's on TikTok, so... I know TikTok has gone to longer format, but still. And granted, I would, if I honestly would probably, even though it's not something that I feel called to do in any way, shape, or form, it would probably be better to see Christians debate Muslims and atheists. Because when I try to debate an atheist, I try not to argue for Christianity, because Christianity and atheism are not equal terms. Atheism is equal terms with theism, not Christianity, and people confuse the two. And then Cantafoli says, "Hail Karoga." I'll let it slide this time. Okay, it's a Swedish flag. So happy Swedish Mother's Day, Daniel's mother. Daniel's mother, you have a good son. He went on to this nerd stream to remind everybody that today is Swedish Mother's Day. Robert says, good morning. How you doing, my friend? Martin says, sorry I mentioned the subject. It was a big shock to me. No, it's all good, buddy. No, loka is someone, humility is someone humility their self on the internet and they're bad people. That's not a complete sentence. I'm sorry. And yeah, take a break from social media. If you can't take it, then I would say, yeah, that's actually not a bad idea every now and then because social media is poison to the brain. Captain Foley says, are we still friends if I'm agnostic? I know you're agnostic. We've talked about this before. That doesn't bother me. And that's the funny thing. And I think people get worked up over things that they ought not get worked up about. I don't think that a person is good, bad, or neutral because of their theistic identity, right? I don't think that a person is good because they're Christian, bad because they're an atheist, or neutral because they're agnostic. I think there are good and bad people on all camps. But I'm just, if we're going to talk about what, now, and depending, and then there's the whole idea of, well, agnostic is one of those terms that's almost never used correctly. Because usually what we call an agnostic is just a person who is an undeclared theist. Because generally speaking, in the modern vernacular, when we say I'm agnostic, we usually just mean, well, I think there's something out there, I just don't know what it is. But if you think there's something out there, then you're a theist. If you don't know what it is, it just means you're not necessarily a Christian or a Muslim or a Jew or whatever. You're just a theist. Now, a true agnostic, if you were going to, and by the way, I can't stand the atheists have been trying to co-opt the term agnostic, say I'm an agnostic atheist, because I'm not saying I know there's no God. I'm just saying that I disagree with you or whatever. Then that's and calling yourself an agnostic atheist is an oxymoron, just like calling yourself an agnostic Christian would be an oxymoron. An atheist, or agnostic theist, I should say. An atheist is taking the stance that there is no God or gods. Now, it doesn't mean you have to say, I know with 100% certainty and lock yourself in and say, oh my gosh, you're being such a horrible person because you're claiming absolute knowledge or whatever. No, it's just taking the position that there is no God or gods. It's making the assumption that you're living your life as if there are no gods or gods, right? That's fine. A theist is the opposite. A theist is a person who lives life under the assumption that God or gods do exist. A agnostic is a person that has no opinion on the subject as to the existence of God. I would say this. It would be impossible to be a true agnostic for very long. If, in fact, you want to say that you're investigating the subject. I mean, if you purposely close your ears whenever the topic comes up, sure, you can stay an agnostic. But if you start doing any kind of seriously investigative work, study, anything like that, you will gain an opinion as to whether or not God exists. And so then you would become a theist or an atheist. But most people just tend to think that agnostic just means, I think there's something out there, I just don't know what it is. But that's really just a theist. And sorry for that long, protracted answer. But yes, we're still friends. In my opinion, TikTok is similar to YouTube and other video sharing platforms. There are good actors and bad actors. Yeah, but YouTube isn't owned by the evil Chinese Communist Party. Creep in the house says we can start the stream now. Excellent. We will get started momentarily. Good to see you, Creep. And let's see. You were raised Lutheran. Well, you see, that's your problem. You were raised Lutheran. I mean, you need to go to a good church. Hey, did the choppers? Oh, sorry, that's the creep. How is the world? Uh, how would the world be today if social media never existed? A lot like it was in the 1980s. You know, it's funny because back in the 80s we had this thing called conversations. We would sit down and talk to people. We would have coffee with people and just hang out. The way you would get to know people is by actually spending time with them. And we didn't, walk around with cameras taking pictures of ourselves all the time. So yeah, I think the world would be better. And there is a God. He needed a starship. Was social media inevitable? I think social media is a definite. Put this the right way. It definitely shows where the human mind goes unchecked. Because I think the reason there's so much hate and venom and toxicity online in social media is because people can do it, right? People complain, and it's kind of interesting because people complain that there's a lot of, like liberals especially tend to complain there's a lot of racism on, say, TikTok. And so I figured, okay, let's check it out. And I went to TikTok and started looking around just at random accounts and seeing the kind of stuff. And they're right. There is a lot of racism and stuff on TikTok. Why? Because and I'm trying to think of the right way to put this. I'm not blaming Elon Musk for it. But you see, when Elon Musk purchased TikTok, TikTok, like YouTube and stuff, had a very clear left-leaning preference. And so if you posted things that tended to either not lean left or, God forbid, lean to the right, then you would get shadow banned or sometimes just outright banned. And in a couple of times people would get deplatformed simply for having a differing political opinion. So what Elon Musk did, and to his credit, I agree with him conceptually on this. Elon Musk purchased TikTok for an ungodly sum of money and then said that he is going to reinstitute true free speech. That is, that if someone is posting a comment or posting something on TikTok and the information being posted is not illegal in some way, just let it go. Let it slide, And so this means that truly it became, actual free speech. And which on the one hand, you could argue is a good thing. However, on the other hand, that means that all of a sudden, all the people that do have racist thoughts that they want to put out can put them out without fear of repercussion. And, on the one hand, that's fine, but that is a natural consequence of free speech, is that you're going to hear some ugly things. And so then many of the liberals out there now want to protest now what is called X instead of Twitter because of how horrible it is. And to which Elon Musk's only response is basically that these liberals hate the idea of free speech. And I would say this, I think that they don't like the idea of what feels like bad things being promoted, even though that's not what was happening. That's what they were seeing it as. On the flip side, so I don't like censorship in either direction. I really don't. But I also have no problem, talking about my beliefs without delving into, I think, what would be interpreted as hate speech. I can talk about the contents of the Bible without without engaging in hate speech, unless they get to the point where they just say that talking about the Bible as anything but fiction would be considered hate speech, in which case, wow, we've really sank, haven't we? I do think there's something out there. So yeah, then you're a theist. Fully worships the God at the center of the galaxy. I think that's true. And yes. And then he says, Potts! It's good to hear you guys say that again. I haven't heard that in forever. That just made my day. Well, I'm a theist. Yep, that's all right. Welcome to the club. And the reason I say that, though, Captain, and this is where it becomes important. Like, you and I don't really argue about matters of theology. So it wouldn't make a lick of difference as far as one of any conversation that we have ever had. However, let's suppose that I'm arguing with an atheist over something, the problem of evil or whatever. Well, usually the atheist will try to use the Bible as a crux of their argument. However, since they themselves do not see the Bible as a credible source, how dare they try to use it as their argument? What they're trying to do, it's kind of hypocritical, is they're not trying to argue for the existence of God or for the non-existence of God, because you can't. Instead, they're trying to argue that they think Christianity is bad. And then what they'll do is they'll usually poke at very specific interpretations of Christianity, usually ones that are bad. And so they'll sit there and say that in order to be a Christian, you have to believe that Adam and Eve rode dinosaurs to Sunday school with talking snakes, right? And it's like, no, I don't have to believe that and be a Christian. I could believe that and be a Christian, but certainly there's nothing in the Bible that says you have to believe anything of the sort. But my response to that from any atheist would be, well, wait a minute. What does Adam and Eve have to do with the existence of God? I mean, yes, Adam and Eve is a story told in the Bible, but you don't believe there's a God, so the Bible shouldn't matter to you. Tell me why there's no God. Don't tell me why you think my specific interpretation of God is wrong. Tell me why there's no God. And we can argue on that. And by the way, you say, well, that's not fair because I can make arguments for the existence of God without invoking religion. And my personal favorite is the cosmological argument. And I do think that so far that is an unbeatable argument, because the only way to try and defeat the cosmological argument is to suggest that the universe is self-contradictory and self-creating. Last night's MeTV's TOS episodes of Savage Curtain is still better than modern Trek shows. Yeah, Savage Curtain is getting a little on the weak side. Creep says, I am inevitable. What do I think of the Methodists? Well, the Methodists are currently going through kind of a schism. I grew up in the Methodist Church. But there's conservative Methodists and liberal Methodists. And the Methodist Church I went to was on the liberal side. And by the way, just so you know, when I say conservative and liberal, that's not politically speaking, that's theologically speaking. Those are two different topics. They're related, but they are different topics. You don't have to be a political liberal to be a theological liberal, or political conservative to be a theological conservative. But it helps. All that being said is that any type of progressive theology used to interpret the Bible, I think, is fundamentally flawed and should be avoided like the proverbial plague. And what's the final form of social media? Facebook and X can't go on forever. I think that it'll just become YouFace. And on YouFace, everybody will have a small drone that flies around and uses AI to take a picture of you looking like a fashion model wherever you go and posts it on youface.com. And you are quite creep. Resistance is indeed futile. Guests eventually migrate to virtual worlds and just seem like social interactions. Yeah, well, better than trying to move to actual Mars. That would be bad. What do I think of King of the Hill, the show? I thought it was funny. I think that Judge did a good job of making a conservative Texas family just close enough to the truth to where it really had that, it passed the muster. Because like good comedy usually needs to have some kind of factual basis to it. And when you try to make fun of something, whether it be conservatives, religion, whatever, there's two ways you can go about it. You can try to basically make a farce out of it, and to where, which is what most Hollywood productions do. Most Hollywood, like if you look at the way that Seth treats conservatives on Family Guy compared to King of the Hill, Family Guy looks like this is about, whenever they address conservatives, these are people that are clearly liberals that are writing stories and pretending to be conservatives. As opposed to King of the Hill family feels like a conservative family that's just funny. Because we are still essentially using the same bulletin board system that was invented almost with the internet. Well, yeah. Spike says, bigots would be more isolated if there was no social media. We used to shun those types of people and not associate with them. So a lot of the times they end up alone with their racist thoughts. Well, yeah, the funny thing about social media, it's made the extremes much more mainstream, right? So you have people like, like these white nationalists and stuff like that can post and put their propaganda and stuff out there. But you also have like people that advocate for transgenderism and stuff like that, which also prior to the adventation of social media it's such a small percentage of the population that nobody really noticed. But now it's everywhere. Maybe we need to use real identities so people can cancel out online and then hide those same opinions in real life. I'm fine with it because I think that it opens a door. Man, I'm surprised, and maybe they have, some psychiatrist needs to really do a case study on the mind of the internet to see, Christians have been debating for centuries now about the total depravity of man, right? That's actually a doctrine within Calvinism. But if you look at the idea is that man is truly just by nature a sinful, depraved being. And many people that are humanists would suggest, no, men are essentially good, but then have to be taught evil. And these two competing philosophies have been going on for centuries. To which I say, look at the internet. I rest my case. Total depravity is true. A lolcow is someone who's a bad person and gets humiliated by trolls on the internet. Gotcha. Now that makes sense. According to Star Trek the cartoon, the devil is at the center of the galaxy. That is very true. But according to Star Trek V, God is at the center of the galaxy, except that it's not God. It's an alien being imprisoned there in much the same way. By the way, it's kind of funny because, look, no disrespect intended to William Shatner. because I'm a huge fan of William Shatner. But the writing of Star Trek V is so amateur hour that it's basically 2 episodes of the animated series rolled into one. If you watch the animated series episode Beyond the Farthest Star and the Magics of Megas 2, that's Star Trek V. What does God need with Starship? The best thing to come out of Star Trek V. Well, I will agree with you on that. You're welcome to make any comments you want, so long as you're okay with everybody you know being aware that it's what you really think. Yeah. And Stanley would add row, row, row your boat. I'm not a big fan of I know a lot of people think that the row, row, row your boat stuff was some great character stuff for Kirk, Spock, and McCoy, but I didn't care for it that much. Laura says, so Nerdfight's on temporary hiatus right now. Yeah, well, Mr. Know-It-All's been going through some stuff. These last couple of weeks, I've just been sick as a dog. I'm still sick, but just I'm kind of on the recovery side of it. But yeah, we haven't been able to record anything the last couple of weeks. Why? You want to do something together, buddy? I'm open to the idea. I'm working on getting the preliminary research done for a new series. I was originally going to do a Borg series, but I think it may be bigger than that. And that's scary to me. I don't know how I'm going to do it. And Creep says, it's always on hiatus. It's when we're not on hiatus is when it's temporary. Sadly, that seems true. Thomas says, wow, Laura and Foley here. That is an odd coincidence. And Laura says, Captain Foley is here. Where? Well, he was here a minute ago. He might have ran away since you walked in the door. Salt Checker, in case you don't stream tomorrow, happy Memorial Day. What are you going to do tomorrow? Going to have a cookout and throw some cold ones back? No, if you mean by cold ones, if you mean beer, absolutely not. I do not drink beer. Not because I'm abstaining and think it's evil or anything. I just don't like drinking urine. However, my plan tomorrow is the same as pretty much every day. I will get up as early as I possibly can, get in my car and drive Uber for as long as I can, and then if I have the energy, I will do a live stream tomorrow night. Without social media, we still had militias and incidents like Waco. Yes, but they were few and far in between. Let's see. Thanks to the internet, we have the sum of all human knowledge in our pockets, and it seems like we're getting dumber. That says a lot about our society. Well, because here's the funny thing. You're right that, on your smartphone, you have the sum total of all human knowledge that can be accessed from this little device. But you know what can also be accessed from this little device? Every lie ever told by man. And so you got to try and disseminate through all that. I'm trying to do videos that are 40 minutes every week if the content warrants it. It's killing me. Well, I hope you're making money at it because my understanding is you've been doing pretty good. I've been trying to do at least a couple of shorts every week. But the problem is you can't make money on shorts. I mean, you can, but you have to get millions of views and stuff. And in order to do that, I think I have to be like a 19-year-old Asian girl doing a stupid dance. Creep says, my point is bigots have the way of finding each other and gathering groups even without social media. Well, everybody does that. It's the old saying goes, birds of a feather flock together. We try to find people that we have commonality with. It's tribalism. And so, yeah. Stanley says, bigger than the Borg. Yes. Okay, so I'll run this by you guys since you guys are kind of at the core of my audience. So, as you guys know, I did half of a Borg series before. And I was thinking, okay, let's do it for real. And I started thinking, so what we're going to do is break down every video or every episode of Trek from the very beginning to Picard season 3 that features the Borg, and kind of first break down each video as an individual review, and then take the lore nuggets from each video and start to assemble a larger, bigger picture of the Borg. And so then started thinking about, now I did a Borg origin theory before, where I suggested that the brain parasites from Operation Annihilate are in fact the original form of the Borg. And I stand by that, but I also was thinking, well, there's a couple other interesting ideas as far as I could do like 2 or 3 origin theory videos. For example, you could break down an episode like Return of the Archons, the one with Landru, because they actually talk about the collective consciousness and all that in that episode. And so you could say, okay, here's one possibility, here's another possibility, or maybe these two somehow merged in some way. And then I also got into thinking about, well, what are the Borg in the mirror universe? And look, video game stuff is not canon, so don't bother with the Star Trek Online stuff with me. But I was thinking, well, if the mirror universe, everything is truly the opposite, if the Borg's mission is to assimilate all life and technology and absorb it into itself, then on the what would the opposite of that look like? The opposite of that would be to plant and spread and grow life. And then it just hit me, the preservers. Wait a minute. So maybe the Borg are the preservers from the mirror universe and vice versa. And so they're actually the same species. And thank you, Lore Reloaded with a super chat. Such a rare thing for him to break out that stingy wallet of his. And says, pair character is putting his hand in front of his mouth while blushing. Oh, that's a sticker. Okay. Yeah, it's like, that's funny because on my screen, it literally reads it out that way. Pair character putting his hand in front of his mouth while blushing. So thank you, Laura. I'll need a few zeros after that too. And so and by the way, Laura, you should consider, like, if you look at the coffee link here, if you donate through coffee as opposed to super chat, Google, don't get me wrong, I appreciate Google, I really do, but Google takes 30% of super chats and stuff like that. Coffee takes 5%. So, anyway. But anyway, so I was thinking as far as the Borg thing, so we start looking at like the preservers and so okay, we're going to get some intricate stuff going here. And I'm trying to organize how all the episodes that I would need to do to break this down. And then I thought, well, what else can we bring into this? And then I started thinking about the origin of the Borg Queen, which is another video I did a while back. And that the origin of Borg Queen is the reason that the Borg started changing their priorities. It's also why the Borg started their time travel shenanigans. And then I started thinking about the time travel shenanigans, and I started thinking about the first contact thing, and my triple timeline theory and how that needs to be updated. And then I realized that maybe we need to square away the entirety of the Star Trek timeline or timelines first. Because that's the most fundamental thing about Trek that I think is hard to really just wrap your head around. Like, how is it that the original series, Strange New Worlds, Discovery, the original series, Next Gen, all these, how are they in the same universe? And the answer is they couldn't be. So how do you reconcile that? And I came up with, I'm not going to spoil it here, but I did come up with, I think, a couple of novel ideas on that. And I want to explore that, but it would take a lot of work. And the problem that I have right now is just having the time to get the work done. It's so funny because I don't technically have a job, but because Social Security pays so little, I'm having to work more than I worked when I had a job. Josiah says, Laura reloaded boxes Michael for $1 million. I would get in the ring with Laura for $1 million. I'm pretty sure Laura would win, but I would definitely get in the ring with him for $1 million. Let's see. When we all go to hell, they welcome you with Mormon. The right answer was Mormon. I don't remember that, but that's funny. You owe us a Borg versus the Voth video. And Laura says, yes, I know. If this keeps trending, I may have to go to full-time content creator. Oh, you poor guy. Ooh, I've never been a part of a focus group. Well, then I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys say about this. Borg, that sounds Swedish. Yeah, I've never heard that one before. Your Borg video is basically my 2 Dominion War videos that collectively have roughly 3 million views. Yeah, I didn't get quite that many views, but the Borg videos did do well. A series about the greatness of Emperor Palpatine would be good. That's actually another thing that I've been thinking about, Thomas, and I'm not even kidding, about doing an entire series proving that the Empire did nothing wrong. So I need you guys to help me out here. So should I do the Empire did nothing wrong? Should I do a timelines thing? Should I do a Borg thing? What do you guys think I should do? Here, a cult Christ community. They're a modern day Gnostic. Okay. Creep says, gotta go. It's good making it on time and live stream and hanging out with a bunch of nerds. Peace. Have a good one, Creep. Take it easy. An Andor Pro Empire video. Oh, man. Andor still hurts. You know, I got so mad. I saw this video come up in my suggestions where this person was like, oh, Andor is not as deep as you think it is. And this guy is like, oh, I'm going to give you a real critique of Andor because everybody's gushing over how awesome it is. And his whole critique was that Andor wasn't woke enough. And I was like, okay, whatever. Andor might not be popular enough. Yeah, that's the problem. Even though I find that subject a bit more interesting. Laura says, you could do like I did, do a video for every episode of the Borg, and then sum up all these videos, and after a few weeks, combine the entire culmination of the videos and upload. Well, that's kind of the general idea that I was thinking of. How about a video about the Dominion versus the Rebel Alliance? That'd be all about 30 seconds long. So a long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away, a wormhole opens up. A Dominion fighter comes through the wormhole and finds the Rebel Alliance. Then the Dominion promptly destroy the Rebel Alliance with one fighter. The end. A complete breakdown of the Born would be interesting. I assume you mean something other than the Born, and I'm assuming it's not the porn, so maybe the Gorn? Borg meets medieval castle in Sweden. You know, it's funny you should say that, Daniel, because I actually have been doing some research on that. You're close. The word Borg, because I looked it up because, remember, I used to have a running joke on my original series saying, and now part 17 of my series on the Borg, and I would have a picture of Bjorn Borg on the screen. I'd be like, not him. But so this time, I was actually working on some research for this new Borg series. And I actually came up with the conclusion that the name Borg is generally thought as a shortening of the term cyborg, and then I break down what cyborg means. But actually, it may actually have to do with Bjorn Borg, because the Swedish name Borg actually comes from the Germanic word Borg, which means a fortification or a castle or stronghold. And if you look at a Borg cube, what do you see? To me, that is the very definition of a space fortification. I actually get bothered when I think it's a new video, then slowly realize it's just videos I've already watched all strung together. Yeah. You're talking about those big, those compilation videos that Laura does. I get that. And, I don't know how those did. If Laura's still here, I don't know how those compilation videos did for you monetarily. I don't know if I would do that or not. But first, I would have to get through the series. All right, so nobody has an opinion as to what I should do for my next series. You guys are just like, really? Because the whole reason I told you about it is because I want to know what you think I should do. You need to tell me now because I got to get going here. So if you got an opinion, spit it out now. Anything? I'm still alive, right? Joshua says, "Is that you, John Wayne? Is this me? I have no idea what you're talking about." Daniel says, "I saw Strange New World Seeing episode. I really liked it. Made most of all episodes. I don't really like musicals except in classics. I actually, the first time I saw the musical episode, it kind of rubbed me the wrong way. But after watching it a couple more times, I actually think it's pretty good." Let's see. Opinions on everything else. Yes. Robert likes the series of Star Trek timelines. Josiah says got nothing. Breakdown of the Earth Alliance from Babylon 5. Mike Richards says Punchy the Wonder Cat. Oh, Mike. Punchy the Wonder Cat. What a great, great character Punchy the Wonder Cat was. And I think you should do two different series, one about Star Trek and one with religion. Well, obviously on this channel, I'll be sticking to religion and politics. But I'm talking about over on the other channel. All right, so you've given me very little to think about. But since Mike Richards is here,